Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
The team at Cobra Golf are set to introduce additions to its collection of King putters, making the offerings available in a sleek black colorway, the perfect complement to the limited edition black LTDX drivers and King black wedges. The lineup of black putters includes both King 3D printed and King Vintage Series models, along with two new mallet styles, the King Cuda and Cuda 40. All King Collection putters come standard with the Cobra Super Stroke Traction Tour 2.0 grip and KBS Tour 120 shaft. The new additions to the King 3D printed and Vintage series will be available from July this year. For more information on the entire King family of products, visit cobragolf.com. This is the 19th tee, Kieran Marsh. Nathan Drudy back with you. Incredible, Drewster, to think we are on the eve of the second men's major of the year. All eyes on Rochester in New York State. The Oak Hill Country Club for the 2023 PGA Championship.
Exciting times. I was actually thinking maybe the PGA Championship might leapfrog the US Open for me up to number 3. Not sure. Haven't thought that, fleshed that one out fully, but just kind of what it represents. I get, maybe do we put it above a national open? I'm not too sure, but I am excited. Oak Hill does intrigue me. I know it's obviously changed massively since it's last hosted an event, which I'm sure we can kind of touch on, but it's going to be a great week. I'm really looking forward to it, and I don't think the time zone will be good for us, East Coast. Well, it'll be good for here in WA. I don't know what it'll be like for you guys over there, but I'm just thinking about myself. So,
yes, probably not great for me. In terms of coming in, if you remember, last year, Justin Thomas kind of came from the clouds. He's your defending champion. The story, though, last year was poor old Mito Pereira, who was sitting on the precipice of really elevating himself and, more importantly, his status for some years, and threw it all away with an incredibly wayward drive on the 18th. All he had to do was probably pull the 3-wood and put himself in the fairway, and as a relatively straightforward approach, he didn't. He big duck hook left and threw it all away. JT emerges as the winner, and Mito is now playing in Live. So sliding doors, as they say, Drew. It's incredible, really. But Justin Thomas is your defending champion coming in. This will be a very different tournament this year. I think not to say that it doesn't necessarily suit JT, although his form's been a little inconsistent of late. But I think it speaks to a specific player. And that's not just because of the sheer length. Oak Hill is incredibly, incredibly long, but also the anticipated conditions this week in Rochester, which I think is probably a nice place to start. I'm assuming I haven't taken you by surprise.
No, I've got it here.
Primary role in each and every major preview. But give us an idea of what the weather's looking like, because it's a little grim.
Sure. So for people who don't know where Pittsford is, Rochester is sort of the bigger city, I guess, but Oak Hill Country Club is actually in Pittsford. It's about 5.5 hours sort of northwest of New York, in New York State. So you'd actually go through Pennsylvania to get there. Think up towards Buffalo, if that makes any more sense to anyone up towards the Canadian border.
Go Bills.
Awful place of the world to live, I'd suggest, unless you like snow. Honestly, I could not do it up there. The snow that they get would be dreadful. But anyway, we move on. The weather, obviously, as you touched on, looking certainly interesting. Leading in, we've got very nice weather over the next sort of 3 to 4 days, and on Thursday when it all kicks off, we're looking at a top of 17 with moderate winds and nice sunny conditions, so should be good for scoring. And then we sort of start to get some clouds and precipitation coming through on Saturday. The temperature will increase, and we're set up for a nice finish with a nice windy-ish day on Sunday, but we're looking at rain on Saturday as the only day that will cop it across the tournament, unless another front's predicted for Monday, but hopefully that doesn't come through too soon. So the winds will be there or thereabouts. It won't be super links type weather, but it will it'll certainly have an impact, I'd suggest, particularly on the Saturday. So looking forward to seeing how the weather might impact the course.
And just the length, as I said, like I kind of flagged it. Oak Hill itself has got a phenomenal history. We're not too ashamed to plug other podcasts. So if you're interested, the Fried Egg, as they always tend to do, great little rundown on the course and the club itself. Phenomenal history at Oak Hill. But lengthwise, Dreads, it is like we're talking. I'm just looking through the holes now. Some absolutely monster par fours. Obviously, par fives also tend to get a little bit egregious. I've just gone past the fourth hole is a par five, 615 yards, if you don't mind.
Huge.
And, occasionally, that's enormous. And there is some long par threes. But I think the par fours are kind of going to be the difference maker because we've got a number of par fours, 450 and above, and a couple of par fours over 500 yards, which is absurd. Like,
huge.
This is really going to ask questions of your second shot. And in a different way to Augusta, where Augusta, we're talking about ball above your feet, ball below your feet, never a consistent lie, probably a bit of shot shaping required. This is just length and accuracy. There's going to be a lot of players hitting kind of 6, 5, 4 irons when they're used to hitting 8, 9 irons pitching wedges.
Yeah.
So this is going to ask a question that you're not often asked week in, week out on the PGA Tour, which for mine automatically narrows the field in terms of prospective winners.
Yes, agree. I think we're probably leaning towards the same sort of statistics. For me, I've kind of focused on two key stats. That's green in regulation percentage. So how often can we actually hit the green and give ourselves a chance at birdie, but also the ability to make a par and get out of there, I think is going to be equally as important as making birdies and avoiding those bogeys. And driving accuracy. I think the length is obviously going to be very important. We saw probably a little bit of similarity to this at Winged Foot when Bryson just kind of tore that apart and went on and won the US Open there. Is it going to be, only time will tell. Is it just going to get picked apart again by length? Not too sure, but I think driving accuracy is going to be critically important. So they're the two that I've focused on: driving accuracy, green and regulation percentage. So who are the good iron players? That's kind of where I have narrowed my selections down to. So that'll come across in my selections.
Just before we get on to taking a look at the Australians in the field, question without notice.
Okay.
What sort of score do you think we're looking at? I'm conscious that this is actually one of the conditions of our giveaway this week. We flagged our giveaway in our Monday evening episode, but we are giving away a pair of Oakley sunglasses of your choice and a box of Callaway balls for the person who can pick A, the winner, and B, the winning score closest to without going over. So interested in your thoughts on, it's probably not going to be 23 under, which Jason Day won with TPC Craig Ranch. So what do you think we're looking at from a score perspective this week?
I think it'll be somewhere around between 14 and 16. I think it'll be in that range, sort of your 4, 5 under per round. I would be surprised if it's 20 plus. But players are getting better, ball flies further. Who knows how it'll kind of shape out. I just think that sort of 4 under range is probably going to be where it will land, given that you might get a day that'll throw you a 6 or 7 under, but then also a day that, a good score might be getting around the 2 under. So where are you at?
I'm probably going to be a little lower. So I'm going to say 12.
Yep.
I think for me, I just think that yeah, to your point, like the weather's probably not as bad as what it looked maybe a week ago on the longer range forecast.
Mhm.
The closer we've got to it, some of that, particularly rain, has eased. But yeah, the ball's still not going to run, right? Which is, I think, a critical factor. And I just come back to, I do think there'll be a group that separates itself from the field by virtue of the second shot and their ability to hit long irons. I don't necessarily I think there's a difference between separating yourself from the field but going really low personally. And I still don't think that's going to happen because this is going to be more about not making too many mistakes as opposed to really attacking the course for me. So I'm going to say 12.
Okay.
12 for me.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of in the same sort of vicinity, the 12, 13, 14,
Yeah, I mean, we're
15,
not
16,
miles off each other. Yeah.
We're probably a round different, I reckon. One round different.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly right. Just briefly as well, before we get to the Aussies, the live contingent. This was fascinating going into the Masters, and it was a healthy contingent at the Masters, I think helped by the fact that they had a number of former champions, Phil Mickelson, Pat Reed, Dustin Johnson. So similarly healthy field here. 18 players from live are playing in the PGA Championship. And this was always, of the remaining three, this was probably always going to be the other one where there was a healthy contingent. But you've obviously got Phil Mickelson having most recently won this tournament just 2 years ago, which is still crazy to say out loud, if I'm honest. That amazing 4 days at Kiawah. And then the other probably interesting one in that perspective, taking out the Australians, is the man he actually beat in that final round at Kiawah, and that's Brooks Koepka, given the way in which he really bullied Augusta National just a few weeks ago in the Masters. So very keen to see whether or not Brooks backs that up. I think there's a number of, I suppose, permutations if he does, in terms of he's right on the button, I'd suspect, of Ryder Cup selection later in the year for the US. This is really his only chance to flex his muscles against the other best players in the world in terms of those in consideration for selection in that tournament. He's come out publicly and said he wants to play it. So there'll be some considerations there, but also, I mean, just we all got carried away and swept up in the way he played. It was hard not to at the Masters, and you'd be silly to count him out coming into this week. I think it'd be fascinating to see how Brooks plays.
I think, and I cannot understate this enough. I want a live player to win this major more than any, for the pure shithousery that it would bring. A live golf player defecting from the PGA Tour comes back and wins the Tour's major, I think would just be one of the great storylines, just to see how the PGA Tour plays it. It would be fascinating to see how they actually play it. So I cannot understate that. Overstate, I don't know, whichever one it is.
Overstate.
I would love.
I think it actually both works.
Okay.
You can't overstate how much you want to see it. You can't understate how much you want to see it.
Sure.
That's
live
actually
golf.
both works.
Live golf would be interesting. I mean, look, I think there's only a handful of them that are probably genuine contenders, right? That's probably really DJ Smith and Brooks, maybe at this point. I don't know, unless there's anyone that I've really missed.
I think if this is a massive if, but if his driver behaves, I think the only other one I'd suggest would be Joaquin Niemann.
Sure.
If that's a real flyer, to be honest, because we haven't really seen much out of Joaquin since he won at Riv a couple of years ago. Yeah. But yeah, I think the list is small, but gee, it's a dangerous list.
It is. It is. It really is.
Have
you got the list of Aussies?
Yeah, I do. 7 Aussies in the field this week. So going in alphabetical order: Cameron Davis, Jason Day, Lucas Herbert, Minwoo Lee, David Micheluzzi, and we mentioned this on Monday evening. Forza, Mika, Forza. We're all in on this. This is unreal to see of course, the Order of Merit winner from the Australian Summer, make his major debut. Adam Scott and Cameron Smith round out the 7 Aussies in the field. So look, probably there's some more realistic chances there than others. You'd have to give J Day a look, given he's the most recent winner on the PGA Tour coming in. I kind of said on Monday night, I don't necessarily think this is a great fit for him course-wise, but geez, the stats that you rattled off in terms of his strokes going off the tee and then his approach, he's a fantastic iron player, as is Adam Scott. Whether or not he's got the length required here is another question, but Smithy, I think, is the really fascinating one. We also said, coming off a final round 61 in Tulsa in that live event, losing in a playoff, it's a much better form line than what he entered the Masters. So there's some considerations there. Both Herbie and Minwoo Lee smother the ball, Minwoo in particular. So that's helpful, provided it's consistent. And that's probably the only consideration for those two is driving accuracy, not length. Length is not a problem. It's putting the ball in the fairway.
Sure. Yep. No, I totally agree with that. I think Cam Smith's our best chance. I mean, look, the other one that I think is worth considering. Look, Jason Day is worth consideration. I don't think to win, but maybe in the top 20 if that's sort of where you're interested in playing. But I think Adam Scott is just in building really nicely as well. I mean, the putter was excellent last week at the Byron Nelson, so that always bodes well coming into a major championship. So, I mean, he's another one that I would, potentially consider for that sort of top 20 mark if that's where you're interested.
Just a couple of other storylines for me. I flagged this in the Monday night episode. We're also recording this early in the week, and we could have egg on our faces by the time Thursday rolls around. But Jordan Spieth's obviously a fascinating one, withdrawing from the AT&T Byron Nelson. He said he was touch and go for Oak Hill. He said in a statement that his wrist injury, which was the reason behind the withdrawal, according to doctors, requires rest and limited movement. I'd suggest playing potentially 4 rounds of major golf 10 days later doesn't necessarily fit into that rehabilitation plan. So fascinated to see if he takes the field. Of course, the PGA is the only remaining tournament to be converted in the career slam for Spieth. So this tournament always comes into focus for him and the attention around him. That's fascinating. No Tiger. Yeah, that's not unexpected at all given the surgery that came off the back of the Masters. But I think it just probably pulls into focus, the news a week or two ago that Joe LaCava has moved to Patrick Cantlay on a full-time basis. There's just some things around that
awful
story.
For Joe.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be spending a lot more time on his feet. We know that. I just think it pulls into focus that, it will become increasingly more rare, the opportunities we get to see Tiger play. I'd be genuinely surprised if he gets up for either the US Open or the Open Championship this year. Wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't see him again until Augusta next year, if in fact we do. So,
yeah, I think I was just to piggyback off your off the Tiger piece there. I said to you the other day, there was a great video dropped by TaylorMade actually on their YouTube channel of Tiger. I'm going to forget one of them. Tiger, Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Fleetwood, and Morikawa testing their new clubs and just talking shit essentially for half an hour and talking tech, and it was really, really interesting to watch. But throughout the whole thing, I just couldn't get out of my head how poorly Tiger looks at the minute. Like he looks shattered. He looks genuinely tired. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, and I agree with you. It's probably unlikely that we would see him at the next two anyway. So good call out.
Tend to agree. That's probably it for me in terms of storylines. Shall we go to our tips? It's probably really the only thing remaining, Dresden.
Yes, do it. Where do you want to start? You can begin. You can pick the category and you can go first because I generally get to go first.
Yeah, okay. So I think I'm going to start with who won't win.
Please.
Look, there's a number of people here.
Can I just say
but
before we
obviously-
start? Sorry, this is important context for before we start. The market for this is very, very difficult for won't win, because just running through the market as at 6:37 Australian Western Standard Time on Monday the 15th, John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler are equal favourites at $8.50. Rory's at $12, and then we drop down to $21, and that's Brooks Koepka and Patrick Cantlay. Smith, DJ, JT, and Xander are all at 23. So it's a really open market with a couple of shorties at the top. So I think that's just important to note before we get to the won't wins, because we normally have a list that we can go for. Sorry, push on.
Just run through again for me that top five.
Rahm and Scheffler at $8.50, equal favourites.
$8.50 is incredible. Like, it's rare that you would see. That's long for the first line of betting.
Yeah, I mean,
not that this is a betting podcast, but $8.50, that's long.
Golf's difficult. You might generally see someone around the 5 to 6, but yeah. So $8.50 for those two. Rory at 12, then jumping out to 21 for Brooks and Cantlay, Smith, DJ, JT, and Xander at 23.
Okay. Well, that probably. I mean, I said there's a lot here that I think we could go to, but that probably narrows my focus.
Sure.
Rory McIlroy will not win this tournament.
Yep.
I don't know. I think there's been a lot made around Rory. Let me preface this by saying people who regularly listen to these previews, in fact, regularly listen to this podcast in general, will not be surprised if you're a first-time listener. You'll get a lot more feel, a lot more Dennis Denudo from me, a lot more. It's the vibe, it's Marbo, it's the Constitution, it's just the vibe. And you'll probably give us a whole list of reasons, data-driven wise, why people will and won't win, and that's fine. We take different approaches, but this is very much a Dennis Denudo vibe feel. A meek effort at the Masters, limped out of the Friday round, didn't play the weekend, took the next weekend off. He's obviously come back and, admire him being frank about it, that mentally he wasn't in a healthy space where he could go out and perform again, but it was, his second missed designated event of the year. I just don't think he's in a headspace right now, Drudes, to be honest. Like his game is obviously as good as anyone else in the world at its best, but golf, maybe more than anything, is as mental as it is physical. And I just don't think it's not a criticism. It's not meant to be leveled as, we should expect more or better. I think it's just a result of the burden he's carried. Some people would say self-inflicted. I don't necessarily agree with that line of thinking, but it's the burden he's carried for the past probably 18 months in terms of being a statesman for the game, or at least one side of it. I think it's catching up on him. So I just don't think he's in a position from a mental game perspective to be winning majors at the moment.
It'll be fascinating to see how his break post-Masters, what that has done for him, whether that improves him or whether it doesn't, because he hasn't played a PGA Tour event since the Masters, I don't think. Has he? I'm fairly certain because he pulled out the week after, which was Hilton Head.
Yeah, he played last week, didn't he? He played. He definitely has played because he addressed it.
Sure. So he hasn't
addressed
played
it in the
much.
week leading up to.
He hasn't played much. Put it that way.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Interesting to see.
Your won't win.
Well, maybe going back a couple of these previews, I feel like there might have been some criticism from your side of the screen, is that I haven't gone as hard on the won't win. I've taken the easy option.
Yes, I'm expecting something
Patrick Cantlay, right? I could take Patrick Cantlay. Yeah. He's currently equal fourth on the line of betting. Patrick Cantlay will not win this week. Xander Schauffele
definitely
won't at 23.
No. Of course he won't.
So I thought, look, I'll pick either John Rahm or Scotty Scheffler. Okay, so dived into some of the statistics. So I will give you John Rahm won't win this week.
Huge.
So I'll take I don't know if he is the world number one, the pseudo number one, whatever
Believe
fucking
he's number
rankings we're
one
going with
still.
at the minute.
I think.
So I will
Yep.
go John Rahm at the minute. I told you there was a couple of things that I was looking at. Driving accuracy percentage. That is heavily in favour of Scotty Scheffler. Actually, not by a great deal of percentages in things, but in terms of ranking, John Rahm's 73rd in the world, and at that, and Scotty's up around the 20 mark. So I've gone nod to Scotty there. Green in reg percentage, Scheffler's number one, Rahm's number two. So look, it was a real flip of the coin, but yeah, I'll give you John Rahm to not win this week. Also, another part of it as well is it's very, very difficult to win two majors in 1 year, and I probably can't recall. I wouldn't suggest who was the last one to have won two majors in 1 year. Maybe
Brooks, maybe. Did Brooks win an Open and a PGA?
Yes, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yes, you might be right, but it's very, very difficult to do. Is my point.
Yeah.
So, no doubt that he's playing fantastic golf, and I think he is probably the best golfer in the world. But you wanted me to go hard at this category, so I've gone hard. I'll take the favourite.
That's great. Well done.
No worries. You're welcome.
I applaud that. Should we go want to win?
Yes, hit me.
I'll lead off with mine. Mine is in fact John Rahm.
Brilliant.
So we are, well, not quite diametrically opposed, because that would be my will win, which remains to be heard. But I want him to win because of what I think it does to his standing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
If he is able to go back to back. I think would it be his fifth victory of the year? I think the Masters was his fourth.
I think so, yeah.
So it would be, again, a calendar year for him. He's already leading the money list. He's won 4 times. He's won his second major. If this was to turn to a fifth win, a third major, and a second on the trot, we're talking about I think comfortably the best Spanish player. I think he leapfrogs Seve if he does that. Personally, that's me. I think there'd be a lot of people probably of a particular demographic who'd be shouting at me for saying that, but I just think I think it's true. Personally, I think, and we're getting into the conversation about the great European players to have ever come into golf. So I think his game is worthy of that. I think his standing within the game is growing off the course as well. I think he's becoming a great spokesman for the game. He's a student of its history, has a great respect for its traditions. It's just a player I really resonate with, and I think a third major elevates him, to a place where I think he belongs, where I think we believe he's capable of. It's really hard to catch lightning in a bottle for 4 days over the one of the biggest tournaments of the year, but yeah, I'd love to see it for him because I think it's something he's worthy of. So John Rahm for me for want to win.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that I don't not want.
Of course,
I just think that he won't in comparison to Scotty Scheffler. It's essentially a head-to-head selection, but I totally agree with all of those points that you said there. I think it would comfortably put him in terms of, and it may be a little bit of recency bias, but it would certainly put him in the conversation of some of the great European players. To particularly come over to the US side of things and do what he's done is significant. So yeah, no, I like the pick. I like the pick.
You want to win.
So I've gone very broad here, and then I'll bring it in. Firstly, David Micheluzzi,
obviously
for number one.
Forza, yeah.
Any non-US player is also part of my list. This has been dominated by the Yanks for a few years. The last non-American to win the PGA was Jason Day back in 2018. But I've settled, I guess, on my selection being Matty Fitz. I think there's a little bit of similarity between this and this and last year. I mean, he's playing nicely. Some of the stat categories really shape up for him. I mean, the fact that he's behind guys like Xander Schauffele, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Jordan Spieth, we're not even sure if he's playing. Like, he's behind all of these people in terms of where he sits in the market. And I just have a great admiration for the guy. I think he's so detailed in what he does, and he's going to win another major at some point in his career. There's no doubt. And I'd love to see it be this week, and to win 2 majors in 2 years and cement his position as probably one of the leading young players. We often talk about the Hovlands, and I mean, just going blank on the others that we kind of dump into that. Morikawa, Wolf, all of that, and we often forget about Matty Fitz because he is kind of just the guy in the background. So yeah, absolutely, he would be, he'd certainly be a popular winner amongst people that I know anyway. So Matty Fitz for me.
I think he's got the requisite length as well. It's a big. If I'm kind of running my eyes over the filters of what I think are required here, and we've spoken a lot about it already. He's grown significantly in terms of his length and accuracy, for that matter, off the tee, which I think are really important here. So, I think it's a good tip. I think it's an important. Would be important for you. You love him, and I don't begrudge you of that. I've got a soft spot for him as well. Probably not as deep as yours, but he's enjoyable to watch. So, okay.
I reckon we've got the same person here.
Win.
I just feel like we've got the same person.
So do I. So maybe what we'll do is I've got an honourable mention.
Okay, go for it.
As is my want. And then maybe I imagine we do have the same person, so maybe we can just combine our time.
Sure.
And speak about who we both believe will win.
It'd be funny if it's
my honourable mention, and we'll count down, so at the same time, we'll see what happens. My honourable mention, and I had to honestly, this was really hard because I was almost there, and I'll be personally thrilled if he wins, but also a little bit filthy and back myself. Tony Finau.
Yeah.
So I think the time has finally come for Big Tone to step up and win a major. Because I think the course fit for him is excellent. So put to one side, he's 2 wins already for the year. So he's in form.
Yep.
In terms of stats this year, strokes gained approach first, strokes gained scrambling first, strokes gained putting from 3 inches, not overly important, but he's just the only other one that's first in. So I just thought I'd raise it. But those two others, approach and scrambling, 2 things I think will be important. Now he's 24th off the tee, which is a little bit of a concern, but I think that speaks. I know it speaks more to accuracy than it does distance because he's one of the longest players on tour. He's 3rd overall for the year, strokes gained total. He's a bit over 2 shots on the field, strokes gained total, which is incredible, really. Yep. I just think if he can put the ball in the fairway off the tee, everything else lines up to him being really competitive. And that's a big if over 72 holes. The best part of, 60 important drives, that aren't par 3s. But I think if he can do that, he is going to be right there because everything else lines up.
Yeah.
Specifically
totally
for Oak Hill. So
totally
Tony Finau, honourable mention. I think he's going to be very close. However, my winner.
Okay, go for it.
I think it's the same as you. Scotty Scheffler.
No.
Holy shit. Okay.
Good radio.
I have no idea who you picked.
This is
I
good
think
radio.
I may have some idea who you picked. Yeah, this is great radio. Look, okay, let me be brief then. How should we do this? Because this is embarrassing and awkward now.
No,
Well,
go
you
for
should
it.
tell me. Oh no. Okay. So I just think for all the stats that you rattled off before, for mine it's a choice in two, which I find it phenomenal. I'm now intrigued to know who you're going to pick because I think it is a choice in two. I think it will ultimately be Rahm or Scheffler. I think the stats lend itself to your point. You outlined quite eloquently why it would be Scheffler ahead of Rahm. I also just really liked. I mean, it was cruisy at the AT&T weekend just gone. Like he barely looked like he got out of third gear. It was a home game in Dallas. Slept in his own bed. Great week leading up in terms of a major. So that was ominous for me. If he'd gone out and won, maybe different. I know he's done that before. I know he's won on the eve of the major and done the business. But I don't know. I just think what I saw there was a guy who was using TPC Craig Ranch as nothing more than a tune-up and had himself in the conversation of victory for an extended period of time. And that for me, if I'm other players driving through the gates and up the drive at Oak Hill, Monday, Tuesday for my practice round, I'm looking over my shoulder because he's on.
Yeah, and I think he's got that presence now in the game, right? Like he's still the big teddy bear in a way. Like he's such a nice guy, and he does have a bit of a presence about him. And I think people, to your point, people will be looking over their shoulder to kind of see where he is. And if he's one or two back coming into Sunday, then I think it's genuinely game on because he's got that effect that John Rahm's got, and even Rory to a certain extent has. So no, I admire your pick, and that's why that's why I went John Rahm and not Scotty Scheffler as my won't win.
Just finally and very briefly on Scheffler, I don't know if you caught it. There was a clip doing the rounds. It would have been in the lead up to the Byron Nelson. He and a number of other players, I believe, and this is typically good research for me. I think last week in the States might have been like Mental Health Awareness Week or something of that nature. There were a number of players asked the same question in their press commitments leading up to around why it's important to have an escape in golf and what golf does for your mental health, and all very eloquent answers, ranging from JT, it's a constant challenging myself and bringing the best out of myself. And I think Homer described it as a place to escape, and Scheffler's answer was phenomenal. And it's what he's kind of becoming known for now in terms of it was very much golf does not define me. Golf is something that I do. It is not who I am. And he's, as I said, I think it's something that's grown in terms of its reputation around his victories because he's spoken about it a lot, particularly after victories. It's something, and this is not necessarily a hymn sheet that I sing from, no pun intended, but it's something very bedded in his faith.
Yep.
Which has been very well publicized. But I think it is an incredible weapon. Like he is so detached from the result. It's alarming, to be honest. And like there's not many guys, push comes to shove, that can be that unencumbered by a bad stroke or a bad putt. And it is just water off a duck's back to him. And that to me is almost, he's a phenomenal player, but that might be his greatest strength. And that might be the thing that sets him apart most from the field.
Well, I think, we've spoken to so many people over the years who have said the ability to let those bad shots go immediately and move on is so critical and so important. And that mental game that you talk about is so important. So, yeah, totally buying into everything that you're saying.
Who is winning the tournament if it's not Scotty Scheffler?
Colin Morikawa is where I've landed.
Wow. Okay.
You can currently get $29 for Colin Morikawa to win his third major.
Might be a bit short for me, but yeah, that's fine. Talk to me.
Caveat, right? His putting sucks. If he
Yeah.
can putt, it's the same as what we've said all along. Every other part of his game is there. It's if the putter shows up. And if the putter shows up, he's very difficult, very, very difficult to beat. Driving accuracy, third on tour, sitting around 70%. So he finds the fairway a lot. Green in regulation percentage, he's in the top 5. Nearly gaining half a shot under par, 71% green in regulation percentage. Green in regulation percentage from 150 to 175 yards. As we know, you touched on the length of the course. So the players who can hit their long irons are certainly going to be favoured. He sits 20th on tour for that, 69% finding the green from 150 to 175 yards. He's 9th finding the green in regulation percentage from 175 to 200 yards. Strokes gained approach the green, he's 4th, just behind John Rahm. Tom Hoagie somehow is in 2nd. He's 13th at the minute, strokes gained total. And as I said, the glaring statistic is the putter, right? He loses a lot of shots to the field with the flat stick in hand on the greens. But as we've come to know, and it happened at TPC Harding Park, it happened at the Open Championship when he won his 2 majors, if he can putt and the putter fires for him, then he's a genuine red hot chance because he finds the fairway, he's got the length, and he finds the fairway, and he's the best iron player on tour. It's just a matter of what he does with the flat sticks. So there's obviously a massive caveat around it, but I'll take Colin Morikawa to win major number 3.
I love that for you. Not personally for myself, but all of those. Well, no, I mean all of those things and more are the reason why he is on his day one of the best golfers in the world. There's no doubt about that at all.
Yeah,
I just think we've been expecting a lot since the Open Championship victory, and I wouldn't necessarily call him the man who promised the world and delivered an Atlas, because he hasn't necessarily been saying he's not the type of player that goes, I'm going to win the golf tournament this week.
Yeah.
But just based on his potential, it's been disappointing.
I mean, look,
I think he's 100% capable of winning the tournament. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that at all.
I mean, look,
it's just whether or not he will. That's
it's difficult because he's 26, right? He turned pro 4 years ago. He's got five career wins. 2 of those are majors. So, I mean, like, I think he's absolutely delivered, like, easily the best young player out of that crop that we kind of just mentioned about for in terms of himself and Burns and all the others. Like, I think he's absolutely leading the pack. Like, it's the putter, and I think he knows that, right? He's 169th in strokes gained putting. He loses 0.3 of a shot on the field, but he's gaining shots in every other strokes gained category. 4th in approach to green, 5th tee to green, 23rd off the tee. So I think he's kind of got the all-round game that could deliver major number 3. And if he does that, then he's already at the age of 26 put himself into very rare air in terms of 3-time major winners. So
absolutely,
he will have knocked it out of the park. So I'm interested to see. Look, and for all the reasons that I've outlined, he could well miss the cut if the putter doesn't fire, because that is the biggest thing that I'm hanging this tip on. So I'll take Morikawa to be the winner up in up wherever we are, Rochester or the very north of the US.
Let's snake draft it, and you can round back with your value, your roughie.
Okay. I've got a player here, a recent winner in the world on the DP World Tour. Won the Australian Open. I'll give you Adrian Maronk at 151 to 1.
Oh.
151 to 1 seems way overs for me. I know, look, he has not played particularly well when he's gone and played on the PGA Tour. His best finish, he finished at T17 at the match play and T14 at the Honda, missed the cut at the Masters and the Arnold Palmer. So some of the bigger tournaments he has missed the cut at, but I just feel that 151 is well and truly overs. So if there's a make the cut market, then that might be something of interest for Adrian Maronk. So he's my pick. He's my outright pick, and I'll have a scroll while you're talking and see if I can find anyone else.
Okay, so full disclosure, I looked at Maronk for that reason and more. I didn't land there, but I love it as a selection.
Yeah.
I mean, my guy is a relative favourite compared to $151 pop. But I find myself gravitating towards the $81 line of betting.
Mm-hmm.
And Slick Dick Rick Fowler.
Ricky Fowler.
Give me all of Ricky Fowler. So a couple of things here. He is back inside. I think he actually might be on the button on 50, but he's 40, somewhere between 48 and 50 in the OWGR.
Mm-hmm.
Take that with a grain of salt, as we know how susceptible to manipulation they are. So I don't like to go by the OWGR rankings, but it is important to note he's back inside the top 50 for the first time in a considerable length of time. Two tools that I like to go to for what I call a true rankings. Is the Sagarin rankings, the Golf Week Sagarin rankings, kind of like a power rankings, and also the data or data, depending on which part of the world you're from, Data Golf rankings. And if you don't subscribe to the Data Golf newsletter or haven't visited the Data Golf website, you're mad, because it is the best in the business. So, Data Golf rankings, he's currently 18th in the world. Which is considerably higher than his world ranking. It's even better on Saga, and he's 13th in the world. He currently, according to the Data Golf website, he is above average in all major metrics: putting, around the green, approach, driving accuracy, and driving distance. Now, it doesn't put him, I think, at the lead of many of those, although his approach is exceptional. As is his putting. And that's probably two things that are going to be important. He's just above average accuracy and distance-wise off the tee, but certainly not necessarily poor. And I think just looking at his form, so he actually played quite well at this tournament last year. He finished in a tie for 23rd, fell off a cliff. Following that performance, he went T57, T64 cut, T47, T38 cut, T64, and then it gets a little better, kind of back into the year, T6, T2, T34, T54, and then we're off to the races from the back end of January this year, T11, T10, T20, T31, T13, T17, T10, T15, T14. He is trending. He's playing some exceptional golf. You look at those tournaments individually on the Data Golf website, his approach is through the roof in terms of strokes gained. As is his putting. Off the tee is a little erratic, but if you can, I suppose, bring that back even to par, like I'm talking strokes gained total in his last couple of appearances, plus 2.4, plus 2.3, plus 1.8, plus 2.3, plus 1.4, plus 1.6, strokes gained total on the field. He is in a rich vein of form. Slick Dick Rick, and I think 81s is exceptional value for Ricky Fowler.
Yes, I think this is obviously a significant test, right, for him. So
yes.
81s is probably overs, I agree. But yeah, I'd be playing maybe make the cut line for him. There's a few others that are interesting, like Tyrrell Hatton you could talk me into at 41.
Yes, absolutely.
Playing quite nicely. Keegan Bradley at 81. Just quietly going about business, Keegan Bradley. And, we touched on length being so important and similarities. I mean, not playing great golf at the minute, but Bryson at 101 always scares me with just when length is so important. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, you can make a case for so many. Seamus Power at 151 seems way over. Brian Harmon, I'll give you a punter again at 201 to make 201 to 1 to win, but then to make the cut. Paul Casey at 201 again. So some big numbers, but more so making the cut than winning. So plenty of value out there, I guess, if that's the way that you want to play. But I'll stay with Moronk as being my true pick here.
Yes, and of course, as we always say, gamble responsibly.
If that's what you want to do with your money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not everyone's fit, but hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Always value in a major field, no doubt.
Yes.
That'll probably do us, Droots. A brief reminder, obviously, depending on when you're listening to this, if it is prior to a tee shot being hit in earnest, make sure you get your entries in for a giveaway. Box of Callaway balls and your choice of one of 7 or 8 different styles of Oakley Sunnies, thanks to our great friends at Oakley and, of course, Callaway with the balls there. So that's on our social media pages, 19th Tee Podcast. Make sure you nominate a winner, a score closest to without going over. That's important, really important. Can't go over. Tag a friend and make sure you're following, obviously, us and Oakley as well. So make sure you're in for that. Got to be in it to win it. I think that's it.
That is.
From a 2023 PGA Championship perspective, all that's left is 4 days to golf.
Yeah.
And we will be back early next week with a review of the second men's major of the year. Happy hunting, Drewster.